Welcome to the Twisted Tentacle Inn. I'm your Innkeeper Vase Odin, and we have a very special episode for you today. All yellow, all the time. Last year, the Arkham Chronicle came up with an idea for a collaboration with some of the most popular content creators for Arkham Horror the card game. It was called All Purple, All the Time. The idea was for each content creator to come up with a deck for an existing Mystic Investigator with intent to play in a 4 Mystic Investigator team. Once Father Mateo was released for the Forgotten Age, the Twisted Tentacle Inn joined in on the fun and created a deck for Father Mateo, even taking him on a couple of scenarios with an all-purple team for the Forgotten Age. This year, the Arkham Chronicle is back with another challenge, creating a team of all yellow investigators. The rules are simple. We are assigned an investigator of the Seeker class, and we are to create a deck with the intent to play in a multiplayer group on Standard. The group we know is going to be an all-yellow team, but we don't know what investigators will be joining us from the available Seekers, and we also don't know what each investigator's deck is going to look like except for our own. The deck should be level 0, and we cannot include cards from the Circle Undone. We are assuming 2 core sets and every expansion up until the very end of the Forgotten Age. Here at the inn, we're very fond of support characters, and we're lucky enough to be assigned Minh Thi Phan, the assistant. So strap on in. This is going to be a long ride. We're going to go through the thought process in creating this very special deck. Minh Thi Phan is a Seeker with 4 willpower, 4 intellect, 2 combat, and 2 evade. Her special ability is after an investigator at your location commits a card to a skill test, it gains a wild icon until the end of the test, and you can do it once for each investigator per round. She has a 7 in health and 7 in sanity, and her Elder Sign effect is a +1, and she can choose a skill card committed to the skill test and return it to its owner's hand after the skill test ends. Pretty balanced character and screams support. So that is exactly what we're going to do with her. Her high willpower and naturally high intellect, as with all other Seekers, gives her an advantage in investigating, and it gives her an advantage against treacheries that tend to attack willpower and tend to do damage to the sanity side of things. We'll keep all that in mind as we build her. With an even 7 and 7 health and sanity, she is the most balanced Seeker in terms of durability. Her deck building requirements are Seeker cards and neutral cards level 0 to 5 and Survivor cards level 0 to 2, which is a very interesting deck building requirement. She has a very broad card pool, as a level 0 build gives her full access to all Seeker and Survivor cards and neutral cards as well. So we have a lot of great cards to choose from. So in order to build this deck, first we need to determine what our main goals are, what our role in the group is going to be, and what we plan on doing with the deck. And there are going to be a lot of great choices, so then after we've decided on a bunch of cards, we have to trim the fat and choose only the cards that we absolutely feel are necessary in order for her to fill that role. So let's begin. We will start with her signature asset, Analytical Mind. 2 wild icons, a 3-cost asset that doesn't take up any slots, and allows Min to commit 1 card to each skill test performed by an investigator at another location. Pretty phenomenal. And after you commit exactly 1 card to a skill test anywhere, you can exhaust this card to draw a card. Pretty awesome signature card, and it screams support. We will keep that in mind as well as we build her deck. The King in Yellow is her signature weakness. This one is one of the harshest signature weaknesses in the game. Basically, when you pick it up, it takes away a hand slot. So if you have both your hand slots filled, 1 item is going away. And once it's in play, you cannot commit 1 or 2 cards to a skill test. It has to be either 0 or 3 or more. And after a skill test is successful, in which you've committed at least 6 matching skill icons for the test, you can discard the king in yellow. What makes this even more harsh is the fact that you have to use 3 cards minimum for this skill test, and the 6 matching skill icons can't be from Min's special ability because her wild icon isn't applied until after you commit the cards. So you have to have 6 actual skill icons on the cards, and it has to be at least 3 cards. That's pretty tough. So we have to work around this weakness. We have to either put in cards to deal with it, or just find ways to ignore it. And we will go into how we're going to handle this as we're picking our cards for the deck. So I've already determined what I want Min to be doing, so we'll go from there. First and most important, enemy management. Everybody needs to do their part because Seekers are just not that good at enemy management to begin with. So we need everyone pitching in. We will be assisting the team with some additional skill points, and drawing cards is what our assistance is going to be, and that's going to help keep everyone doing what they do best. 3 goals is because each investigator in the Seeker class has some strengths, and they'll probably be built around those strengths. Rex Murphy will probably be our main investigator, along with Ursula Downs, who is also a phenomenal investigator. I believe these 2 characters, these 2 investigators, will be built as our main clue gatherers in the group. Rex, being a little more versatile with his deck building, could also probably help a little bit with combat by having, maybe they'll build him with some spells since his willpower is 3 and he can take 5 off-class cards. Who knows? Daisy Walker will probably be one of our main combatants because she can cast spells fairly well with her tomes and her Mystic off class, so she will probably be very good at doing some of the fighting as well as some of the healing. So we won't be needing any healing support from Min because Daisy will probably take up on that role. And Norman Withers will probably also be one of our main fighters. In fact, his willpower of 4 puts him in a really good position, and being also full Seeker / Mystic at level 0 makes him one of our most combat focused individuals. So that's what I think is going to happen with the other Seeker investigators, leaving Min to be able to support in other ways. We don't need her to support in healing. We don't need her to do too much fighting, but we do need for her to do her part in terms of enemy management and picking up clues here and there. Alright, so first we'll start with the cards I didn't pick. Dark Horse, being one of the most popular Survivor cards, was definitely one I considered. Having a +1 to all of her stats would definitely be very nice for Min if she were going at it solo, but as she is going to be a full-on support character, it wasn't necessary, and I would have to build my entire deck around this card, and I did not want to have to do that, so we decided to go against it. Another option that's very popular would have been Lucky. Min's ability is for skill cards that are committed to skill test, and she needs as many skill icons in her deck in case the king in yellow comes out. Lucky is a great card, but it doesn't have any skill icons, and it only helps her. It doesn't help her help others, so I decided to not pick that card. Next up, the most popular card for Seekers, by far, Dr. Mylan Christopher. Being a unique ally and having a party full of Seekers, this is a highly sought after and contested ally. So I'll let the other Seekers, especially the ones that will be doing primary investigation like Rex or Ursula, go for Mylan Christopher. Min will only be doing backup investigation, so there's no need for her to be having Mylan Christopher in her deck at all. Because Min wasn't going to be using a lot of high cost cards at all, I did consider putting Charles Ross Esquire as her ally slot, but then I realized that you can spend resources to pay for item assets played by other investigators at your location, and I figure that there's not going to be a tremendous amount of item assets, especially expensive ones. This ally is great if you have a Seeker that's rolling in cash and doesn't need a whole lot of resources, and then you have a Guardian in your group or a Mystic in your group that absolutely needs to be putting down assets non-stop. Then I would say great ally to put down for this team. In this case, a team of Seekers isn't going to be high on the item asset situation. So, Charles Ross Esquire, objection. Next up, a very popular ally for the Survivor class, Peter Silvestri. People are going to think I'm crazy for not including him since none of the other Seekers are going to be able to use him, maybe Rex. The +1 to agility is not something that I necessarily wanted for Min. Most of the cards that I'm going to be choosing for her will automatically evade or have other more subtle ways to evade as opposed to a raw skill check. So, and the health or the sanity buffer didn't necessarily need it for Min, as she has a very healthy sanity pool. So I needed the slot for the cards for other things. So I decided against Peter Silvestri. Dr. William T. Melson, amazing card in Min. Usually I would have chosen someone like him for the ally slot, but in this case I thought maybe Daisy would be choosing him. Plus, as much as I wanted to put him in there, I just couldn't find the space. Then the art student, also a great card, but I didn't need the free clue gathering cards in the Min deck. Although it would have been awesome to be picking up clues for free. We have so many great clue gatherers in this group that I didn't think it was necessary to be filling card slots with cards that give free clues when we have such an easy time at it anyways. All the allies, the one I considered the most for this Min deck was Madame Lebranche. The card draw was the main reason for it. If my hand was empty, this Min deck really wants to have cards in her hand. But I just couldn't do it because, you know, for the potential to draw a card if your hand is empty, I may never have seen the benefits of this card. The reason I did not go with it is because it would have been situational. I put in a lot of other card draw in this deck, which Min can benefit from or she can give to other investigators. And the chances of her being low on cards, although decent, were not high enough for me to warrant putting someone like Madame Lebranche in the deck. I did think about putting Hyper Awareness in this deck, but then I decided that just wasn't sure how many resources I was going to end up in a round. I don't have a lot of cards that provide resources, so it wasn't going to be very effective or very reliable to be able to boost these stats when necessary. So I decided against wasting a card slot for that. I did consider putting medical techs. Being a support character, I considered many ways to support the other investigators. In the end, I decided healing support was not one of the things I wanted Min to be doing. This requires an intellect test of 2. Min's intellect is 4. Daisy has a higher intellect and she does like to work with books and texts. So I figured Daisy would end up taking medical texts anyways, so we could have Daisy be the healer in the group. Same goes for logical reasoning. Most of the Seekers have high sanity already, so logical reasoning was not going to be an absolutely necessary thing. Maybe for Daisy, maybe for Norman, since they're playing with some mystic cards, they might be encountering a little bit more horror than the other Seekers, but I didn't think that it was necessary to be filling my slots with that. Plus, I think Daisy and Norman will probably be packing some kind of horror healing on their own, so they didn't need to rely on Min for that. When we upgrade our cards, I do think that some of the staples for Seekers are pretty much going to be standard. I mean, I think everybody's going to end up taking Strange Solution, Acidic Ichor, because, well, why not? But I'm not putting it in this deck because if you notice, you can identify the solution. You just need one Seeker to do that. You don't need everybody packing Strange Solution unidentified. As long as one Seeker identifies the solution, everybody can upgrade to the Acidic Ichor if necessary. So why am I going to take it? Someone else is going to end up taking it. I'm positive of it. Now, some enemy management cards that I didn't go with. Persuasion, although I really do like this card in Seekers. You have to test 3 intellect and plus additional difficulty. Min has an intellect of 4, so it was kind of hit or miss if that was going to succeed. I decided against it, and there were cards that were a little bit more reliable with enemy management, so I didn't go with it. Same with Waylay. Waylay is a great card, especially because it has 2 agility icons, but the enemy has to be exhausted already in order for you to kill it. So I decided, well, it would combo nice with Ursula, but at the same time, if Ursula's not, around, then I have to evade him, and Min just doesn't have a high evade score to begin with. So Waylay just seemed a little bit too hard to pull off consistently. So I decided against it as much as I wanted to put it in the deck. Not without a fight, another card that I like in Survivors. In this case, Min is not going to be one of the main fighters in the group, so I expect her to be in a location with other investigators who will be doing a little bit more fighting, and I most definitely don't expect Min to be engaged to more than one enemy at a time. So that was not a card I wanted to get. And then Fieldwork, ability boost for different things, specifically investigating. Fieldwork is great, but I didn't want to use it in Min since she won't be a primary investigation character. Same with Magnifying Glass. Let the others like Rex and Ursula have those 2 cards. And Min can use the slots that these would have taken up for more support. And I did want to talk about some of the neutral skill cards, the desperate skill cards, as well as the regular neutral skill cards like manual dexterity and persuasion or perception, things like that. I kept these to a minimum, and a lot of people are going to be confused by that, and I do have a reasoning for this. I didn't want to go skill heavy in Min, especially with these neutral cards from the core set, because you can only commit 1 per skill test. So say your prayers, you can only commit 1. Guts, you can only commit 1. So they're not going to really help too much against the king in yellow because you can only commit 1. So, they're going to give you 2 icons, and then it's a dead card in your hand if the king in yellow comes out. So the entire time I was thinking, what if the king in yellow comes out? I'm doing a lot of card draw with this deck. Most definitely it's going to come out more often than in a typical game. And the king in yellow prevents you from committing skill cards to tests, which if I give this Min deck a tremendous amount of skills, it's going to cripple the deck completely, and then I'd be dead in the water until I can commit 6 cards. And then on top of that, these cards with matching skill icons, where else am I going to get 2 more, agility icons or 4 more agility icons if I can only commit 1 manual dexterity to a test? So I decided against most of these neutral skill cards. Confusing at first, yes, but with this Min deck, I went very event heavy, and a lot of these events have matching skill icons or a lot of skill icons so that I can commit them to test or play them as events and get some special things out of them for support. We'll go deeper into that in a minute. And then Rabbit's Foot, I decided not to go with because, even though I wanted the card draw, I'm not going to be doing too many skill tests. It's going to be the other investigators. So I'd rather just use that slot for something else. And Rise to the Occasion, it's a great card, but a little situational. A skill test of higher or 2 higher than my base skill value. It would probably have to be a combat or agility skill test, which would most often happen in a combat, and in this case I won't be doing too much combat, so that card would probably just sit in my hand. So as good as that is, I decided against it. Another card I considered, because I just love this card in almost every deck I build that can take it, Fight or Flight. Amazing card, but I'm just not going to be doing that much fighting, and I don't expect to be taking too much horror, so it's going to be situational in her. Painkillers, as well as other damage buffer. I really wanted to play some damage buffer. I really did. Leather Coat and the teddy bear. There were too many cards that I needed to fulfill this support role, and I decided against all of them. I am running a very, very, very risky deck with no damage soak whatsoever. So I'm really counting on my allies to help out in terms of helping me not take too much damage. And I think they'll be successful. Last Chance, another card with an amazing amount of skill icons, but I don't expect to be low on cards in my hand because I do have a lot of card draw planned for this deck. So, oh, and finally, Shrewd Analysis. I don't want a random card upgraded, so I decided not to put Shrewd Analysis in the deck. So that does it for the cards I didn't go with. And if you're still with me, I know this is going to be a much longer video than I planned. If you're still with me, now I'm going to just dive right into the cards I did choose and go into detail as to why I chose it. The only consistent self-defense card I threw in the deck, 2 copies of Fire Axe. Fire Axe is one of my favorite weapons in the game, and with this deck, Min will probably have a lot of resources at her disposal, even though she's not using Mylan Christopher. So I decided this will be the way she gets out of a pinch in a tight situation, fighting some enemy, or if she needs to deal additional damage to help the others kill something. So Fire Axe it is, her way out. I decided to go with the old Book of Lore. I know Daisy will probably end up taking this as well, but Daisy is mostly going to use it for herself, I would think. Min is going to be using this old Book of Lore to allow all the other investigators to draw cards and kind of search for specific cards 3 at a time and be able to do what they do best. Be able to see the cards that they want to see more often, and I think using that card consistently each round, having other investigators search the top 3 cards, pick one, they'll be able to make their combos happen and do what they do best. The only card that I have for the ally slot is Stray Cat. I know some of you are gonna be just scratching your heads, but this is, I needed some more combat management, and this is cheap with just one cost of 1. It's not meant to be a damage buffer. It just evades an enemy at your location as a free action. Great get out of jail free card, basically, if you are in a tight spot, and that is exactly why it's there. One of the great Seeker combat management cards, Anatomical Diagrams. This is pretty awesome, and I'm mostly planning on using it again as support. So when, say, Daisy or Norman are casting spells, or Rex may be using a weapon, I'll be playing this card at the beginning of their turn to lower their target's evade and fight values so they can more easily kill it. I also plan on using this most expensive card in my deck, Cunning Distraction, to evade all enemies in a location if we start getting overwhelmed, so everybody can grab the clues from the location and get on out of there. One of my favorite cards. Unfortunately, most Survivor decks don't include it because, well, most Survivors can't afford it, but Min can, so I do want to use it in this deck. I also want to put Guidance in there. I want to support others doing their best, whether it's combat or investigating, and giving them an extra action to do so. It's going to be awesome, especially in a turn where Min has nothing else to do. Why not guidance them? Barricade will help keep hunter enemies away, another combat management and enemy management strategy at a 0 cost. It's pretty awesome, and it's got a nice mix of icons that you can use to help commit for tests. Hiding Spot, another great one, similar to Barricade but in a different way. If you have hunters chasing you, playing Hiding Spot at the location where the hunters are, if there's no investigators there, the hunters automatically will turn aloof. Very important to note, you can't use this in a location if you're already engaged with enemies. You can use it, but the enemies gaining aloof once they're engaged to you, it's not going to do anything. They don't disengage from you, so it's important to note. But this card is still great if someone's chasing you, to kind of slow them down. And continuing with the theme of the deck, No Stone Unturned, awesome card that basically will allow others to search 6 cards of the top of their deck. Again, our support style is going to be playing cards to allow the other investigators to search their decks for the cards that they need for a particular moment or a particular event, or a particular skill check, you know. We'll also be using this once in a while on ourselves in case we need, you know, a specific card or something. The only card that I have for damage management, and it is Perseverance, and I only have 1 copy. I was going to put 2, but I just couldn't find a spot for it. The 2 willpower icon definitely helps, as I can help commit this for either a test of my own or, you know, Norman or Daisy if they're using shriveling or some other kind of spell that needs willpower. So definitely nice to have that in there. And if I don't have to use the cancellation of the damage or horror, I can still use it one way or another for a willpower test or something of the sort. And to continue with the theme of card draw, the preposterous sketches, of course, can't go wrong with that one. Drawing 3 cards. In this case, you can't use it on other investigators, but Min having cards in her hand is very important for her support role. Shortcut is always great in every single character, not just Seekers. Being able to move without using an action to help get to other investigators, to help them better, or to get away, you know, if something is hunting you, always a handy card. And Eureka, which will allow for more drawing cards and searching the top 3 cards and such. And committing this card for its many different skill icons makes it very versatile as well. So now that I've gotten to the skill section of the deck, we're almost at the end of this. Kind of my rationale for having so few skills in a Min deck. If the King in Yellow does come out, it's not going to cripple me, because skills require you to commit them for their special abilities to take effect. Whereas having an event-heavy deck where the events have a lot of skill icons, you can commit them to test if necessary. But if the King in Yellow comes out, you can still benefit from paying their cost for their actual use, for their event use. So the King in Yellow doesn't stop events. So that was my rationale behind the making of this deck, the theme of this deck. I know I will be seeing the King in Yellow far more often than normal with this build, but it's not going to cripple me as much as it normally would in a Min deck, because I still have plenty of events to play to help out my fellow party members. Anyways, I have Guts in here. I only have 1 copy, and it's the only neutral skill card that I included. And because the reason I included it is because we definitely will have 2 willpower users in Daisy and Norman, and maybe 3 if Rex decides to go the spell route. So with 3 possible other investigators needing willpower tests, having a copy of Guts definitely could be handy. And of course I did include 2 copies of Inquiring Mind, because it not only it has 3 icons, and you can commit 2 of these to 1 test, but also because in a multiplayer game, this is one of the best skill cards for multiplayer. Of the 3 icon skill cards, I think in a 4-player game, this is probably the best one. Whereas the Guardian one, Take the Initiative, is excellent in solo and not terrible, but it's very situational in multiplayer. So definitely taking Inquiring Mind. And of course Unexpected Courage, because it is the most versatile skill card. Well, in this case, second most versatile skill card in the deck. And then, of course, the surprise one, Take Heart. Well, it definitely fits in with our theme of giving card draw, but it also can give other investigators some extra resources if they need to. So if they're taking a test that you know they're going to fail, or they can take a test and fail it on purpose, you can at least help them by getting them to draw 2 cards and giving them 2 resources. So continues with the theme of this deck. Alright, and now that I am finally almost done talking, you guys can actually see the ingredient list for this Minh Thi Phan deck, which I shall call Minh Thi Phan-tastic. And hopefully it works out. I haven't really played tested this deck. I might run this 4 investigator yellow team through a couple of scenarios and see how well they do. So we'll see if this deck performs as intended or if it's a total bomb. Hopefully it's not a total bomb, but I have a good feeling about it. I think I'm onto something with this one. So hopefully you guys like it, and if you do try it out in your own 4 yellow character teams, let me know how it goes. And you know, if you have any suggestions on what to tweak in a deck like this, that it would be certainly appreciated. Now, don't forget, this All Yellow All the Time collaboration is the brainchild of the Arkham Chronicle YouTube channel, so check them out. They are the central hub to find out the other content creators that will be participating in All Yellow All the Time. Check out all of their content. I'm going to be checking out, and I'm very, very highly anticipating the decks that will be coming out of this collaboration this time. I think an all-secret team is definitely going to be a little bit more out there and more interesting. There's a lot more possibilities with an all-secret team versus an all-purple team, so I'm very, very interested in seeing what comes out of this. And that does it for Twisted Tentacle Inn's take on All Yellow All the Time with Minh Thi Phan-tastic. Please let me know what you think about this deck, what changes you would make in the comments below. Thank you very much. I'll talk to you all real soon.